Here's another episode of Ask the Lawyer, and this time we're going to be asking about prenups. What are they? Do you need one? I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com, and here to answer those questions for us is attorney Chaim Steinberger he's a family law and divorce attorney in New York City. Chaim, thank you for making some time for us today.
My pleasure to be with you, Rob.
Let's start with a quick definition. It's one of those things I think people think they know, but maybe they don't know. What is a prenuptial agreement?
A prenuptial agreement, well, prenuptial means before the nuptial, before the marriage. It's an agreement that people enter into because they want to deviate from standard matrimonial law. They want to make certain provisions that will control their marriage that's different than what the standard divorce law would be in the state that you live in.
Okay, so who needs a prenup? I'm assuming not everybody needs one or everybody would have one. So who needs one?
So too many people say that everybody needs a prenup. If you're happy with the way divorce law would work, then you don't need one. In New York State, for example, anything I had on the day before I got married belongs to me. Everything my wife had the day before we got married belongs to her. And so long as it's not commingled, we don't need a prenup to keep that as separate property and outside of the marital pot. Anything we earn during the marriage and while we're together belongs to the both of us. So the first question becomes, what do you want to change about that? Why are you not happy with that? What do you want a prenup to accomplish? So perhaps this might be an important point for your listeners, Rob, that a prenup is not an off-the-shelf document that says one size fits all, but more like a shoe. What do you want it to do? Do you want it to run? Do you want it to hike? What size are you? Do you want to wear it at a ball? So it's a more specific document, and you have to work really closely with your lawyer so that your lawyer understands what your goals and objectives are, and then drafts a document that will control for you. So if you're in a community property state where everything you earn, there are some states where after a couple of years, everything becomes one marital pot. And so one party has a lot of assets, and what they had before marriage should belong to that. And you both agree that that's the fair way. Some people may say, no, if we live for 20 years together, everything we always had should belong to the both of us. So it also depends on what your feelings are and what your sense of justice is and how you want it to work. But if you're in a community property state where you want premarital property to belong to each of you separately, then you might need a prenup. If you have premarital property, a business or something that might appreciate, in New York State, for example, if one party or both are working in the business and any appreciation during the marriage belongs to the both of them, that becomes hard to distribute. And so too often, and I argue that it's too often that people take the easy way out and they say, okay, the business is off the table. The other spouse gets nothing of the business. Unfortunately, that makes the marriage feel like it's not a real partnership. And so that can have long-lasting effects. Sometimes a prenup, if it's not done right, can sow the seeds for the actual divorce. So you never want a lawyer that's going to negotiate a prenup, or you don't want terms in a prenup that will make it less likely for your marriage to succeed. If it's done poorly, the prenup can actually precipitate exactly the result that you don't want to have happen.
All right, then that leads us to the next question. How do you make sure it's not done poorly, Chaim? How do we make sure it's constructive instead of destructive?
That's a very good point. You want a constructive prenup and not a destructive prenup. You might take, and this is where I do things differently than most of my colleagues, where I use a prenup as a marriage planning document instead of a divorce planning document. What are your expectations for the marriage? What are your spouse's expectations? How will you get along? If one spouse is making a lot of money and the other one a little bit, are you going to pool all the money? Is everybody going to keep a certain percentage of their money for discretionary expenses? If there's widely divergent incomes and you go on vacation, do you stay in a 5-star hotel? Do you stay in a 1-star hotel? Do you each pay 50-50 or do you pay commensurate? So these are the issues I like to talk about so that the parties come into this knowing what to expect so that nobody's disappointed. I wrote an article for the ABA Advocate 10 years ago in which I said anytime somebody is disappointed, it means the other person has fallen asleep. If my client is ever disappointed, it means that I've fallen asleep at the wheel. So before you get married, you want to have these discussions to bring you closer together. Perhaps share your goals and visions, your aspirations for the marriage so that you're both on the same page. If somebody's going to be sacrificing a career and assets in order to make the marriage work, then perhaps we protect that person so that in case the marriage doesn't work out, they know they're protected. I argue that we find a way, so even if one spouse has a business, but the business might be the biggest asset that the both of you have, that we find a fair way of divvying up some aspect of the appreciation of the business in case of divorce in a way that isn't destructive and doesn't interfere with the running of the business, that isn't intrusive. So perhaps we link it to a formula in the partnership agreement. Perhaps we link it to audited financial statements. So there are a number of different clever ways of setting something up so that both parties feel that this is a real partnership, that they're both committed to the marriage, they're both committed to the success of the business, they feel like they're in it together, and that neither one is excluded. Remember, a really strict prenup that says whatever I earn is mine, whatever you earn is yours, and our money is always separate, what you've done really is you've set up a roommate relationship. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows that it's very transient. The moment somebody's unhappy, that's it, I'm done. And so you want to reduce or eliminate the transactional costs of divorce, but you don't want it to be such a quick and easy out that the moment you hit the first challenge in the marriage, somebody says, okay, I'm done, I'm out. It becomes easier to leave the marriage and do the hard work to make the marriage grow and nurture and become deeper and more lasting relationship.
Some people push back against prenups, Chaim, I'm sure you've heard this, is it's like we're going into the marriage planning for a divorce. It sounds like your approach kind of addresses that.
It's a very difficult thing lots of lawyers negotiate businesses, and they're no good at negotiating prenups because the goal of a lawyer negotiating a prenup is to get the people married. And here's an interesting situation. At the time when you want the parties to join forces and to bond and become one, now we're setting something up where we're in an adversarial stance. We're negotiating. Okay, what happens if it doesn't work out? What do I get? What do you get? And that's necessarily adversarial. So to the extent we can keep it from becoming adversarial, that's a good thing. I lectured on this topic. And I said another reason that prenups are very difficult is because the other side gets to see what you really like when you're not getting your way. And this woman raised her hand and said, well, maybe that's a good reason to do prenups. Let's see what he looks like when he gets angry. Let's see, does she always negotiate out of the sense of fairness? So you may reveal more about yourself than you intend to, and your betrothed may reveal more about themselves than they intend to. It's got to be handled very, very delicately and with sensitivity to the emotions so that it doesn't end up driving a wedge between you that'll never be able to be resolved.
And sounds like it's really important to have the right attorney handling it for you.
It's not too many people make the mistake that a lawyer is a lawyer and all lawyers are the same and one is as good as the next. There are no two lawyers are alike. This is a very specific individual service. And the warmth and the understanding and the care and the dedication and the devotion that one lawyer brings to it is not going to be the same as another lawyer. Very important to make a choice of a good lawyer.
Chaim, great information as usual. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Take care.
That's it for this episode of Ask the Lawyer. My guest has been attorney Chaim Steinberger in New York City. If you want the best information about family law or you're ready to choose a lawyer that lawyers choose, make sure to go to askthelawyer.com. Also, please take a sec to share, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the button at the bottom of the window. Thanks for watching. I'm Rob Rosenthal with askthelawyer.com.